So today we're looking at Daniel lesson 8,
And borrow your pen.
looking at chapters 11 and 12 primarily, and connecting it with chapter 10. So if you have chapter 10 in front of you as well, that will be helpful. And it would be helpful for me too. Oh, here it is. Here it is. So I just want to review a little bit in chapter 10 to put us in context, because all three of these chapters are connected. So we have in chapter 10, you have the first verse gives us the setting of it. Chapter 10 says, in the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, Daniel receives this message, this one of great conflict, So this is the time frame where it happens, is the 3rd year of Cyrus the king. Now, it says right there, Persia. I was going to ask you, but it says right there. So we'll skip that. King of Persia. So, and again, you should be thinking about the statue of Daniel chapter 2. And if you look at that statue on the page that we got out, it's page 157. That one. So whenever we're mentioning a kingdom, you should be going back to that statue, because what was the first kingdom in that statue?
Babylon.
Okay, that was Babylon. Okay, and that was during the time when Daniel was taken captive. And it was the Babylonian kingdom that was ruling at the time. So then now we're moving to the second part of that statue. And who is that?
Medo-Persia.
Medes and Persians.
Yeah, the Medes and Persians. So you see the 2 arms on the statue, and you see the from Daniel 7, you see the bear that's raised up on one leg, where the Persians were stronger than the Medes. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So right now we're in that second kingdom. Daniel's the very early part of that second kingdom. Remember, the Medes came into rule at the end of chapter 5 when the handwriting was on the wall. Remember that? So that night, the Medes and Persians came into rule. So this is just in the 3rd year of that rule. Daniel is still there. The 70 years is not completed yet. So that's where we are. And in verse 14 of chapter 10, it says, now I have come to give you understanding of what will happen to who?
Your people.
Your people.
Your people. Who would your people be?
The Israelites.
The Israelites, okay, because it's talking to Daniel. Daniel is a Jewish captive from Israel. And he's saying this, I'm going to let you know what's going to happen to your people, to the nation of Israel. When?
In the latter days.
Yes. The vision pertains to the days yet future, in the latter days. So he's going to explain to Daniel this whole vision. Daniel, there are some things that Daniel already knew about the future for his people. So what would he already have known?
When they would be sent back to Jerusalem?
Yeah, he knew when the captivity was going to end, correct? So he knew that was going to be 70 years. What else did he already know about what was going to happen with his people? Okay, we're in the time of we were in Babylonian rule. Now we're in the time of the Medes and Persians. What else does he know?
The 70 years was almost up. And by reading Jeremiah, he knew after 70 years that they would come back, that God would allow them to come back to the land.
would he have known who's coming after the Medes and Persians?
That's what I was trying to remember.
Uh-huh. That's why I'm asking these questions, because I want you to remember.
The Greeks.
Yeah, he knew the Greeks were coming, and he knew that from chapter 8. See, the Greeks was not identified yet here, but Greece was identified in the vision in chapter 8. So he knows that after the Medes and Persians, the Greeks are coming. He already knows that. All right, so we're just trying to build and get your brains in gear to put this all together, or as much as we can. All right. So that's what Daniel already knew. This message that he's getting is very distressful to him. Okay. We saw that in the beginning of chapter 10, while his reaction to the message. And now in chapter 11, well, in chapter 10, it says, I've come to tell you, okay, I've come to tell you, I'm going to tell you what this all means, okay? Chapter 10, if we go back to verse 20, because 10, 11, and 12 all go together. They all go together. So I'm just gonna read these few verses into chapter 10 and the beginning of chapter 11. So don't look at the chapter division, okay? Listen to what it says, because it's just right connected one to the next, all right? So chapter 10, verse 20, then he said, do you understand why I came to you? But I shall now return to fight against the prince of Persia. Okay, and again, who's the prince of Persia?
That's Greece.
Satan.
Yeah, so that's Satan's angels. Okay, remember that Israel has an angel, right? Who's that angel?
Michael,
Michael.
Michael, yes. So we talked last week or the week before about Satan's angels and God's angels. So the prince of Persia, when it's a Gentile nation, that prince of that nation is one of Satan's angels. And we saw the battle between Michael and the prince of Persia. Remember, trying to stop him from getting to Daniel. So we have this, he says, I'm going back, verse 20, I shall return to fight the prince of Persia. So I am going forth, and behold, the prince of what?
Greece.
Greece is about to come. Okay, so there's the next part of the statue. So he said, I'm going back to fight the prince of Persia, but the prince of Greece is about to come. So the next nation is coming in. However, I will tell you what is inscribed in the writing of truth. Yet there is no one who stands firmly with me against these forces except who?
Michael.
Michael.
Michael, your prince. This is Prince of Israel, God's angels. No one stands firmly against him except Michael, your prince. In the first day of Darius the Mede, now we're in chapter 11. In the first day of Darius the Mede, I arose to be an encouragement and a protection for him. Okay, so who's the him?
Who's the I?
Mhm.
Michael.
Michael,
Michael.
Okay. Okay, see, if you connect the end of chapter 10 to the beginning of chapter 11, it makes sense that he's talking about Michael, okay, not Darius. Okay. He's
and the
just saying,
eye is the linen clothed angel.
Gabriel.
yeah, right.
Well, we don't know for sure if that's Gabriel or not. I don't think.
Right,
Oh.
right. So that's where it's helpful if you don't disconnect chapter by chapter, but read it all together, because the context was about Michael, okay? And then this man in linen is saying, there's no one else helping fight except Michael. And in the first year of Darius the Mede, I arose to be an encouragement to Michael. Okay?
And my Bible started that first verse with "and," so you see
Okay.
that it makes it real clear that you got to go back.
Yeah, Okay, and in the first year, right? So you can always, I mean, context will 99.9% of the time clear it up for you. But you have to learn to put where the context begins and ends. Okay, so chapter divisions are sometimes just very confusing. So try to avoid them and just read it as if you were reading, a continuous story. All right, so that's Michael. Okay, so now verse 2 of chapter 11. Verse 2 of chapter 11. What do we have here? What is he starting to give him the understanding of this vision? So what does he say is going to happen? In which country? Which ruling nation?
Well, I think here he's about the kings that are going to arise in Persia.
Persia. Yeah.
How many kings are still to arise?
4.
Yeah. 3 and then a 4th.
Okay, 3 and then a 4th. The 4th one is stronger, right?
Mhm.
Right, the 4th one is stronger. And what happens with the 4th one?
Yeah, comes against Greece or stirs up against Greece, it says.
Right, right. So this is where now we're going to transition to Greece. Because you got the 3 kings of Persia, the 4th one's stronger. He arouses Greece, and there's going to be the battle. So now Greece is entering the picture. So now we're entering to the 3rd part of the statue from chapter 2. So let's talk about Greece now. Okay. Daniel probably was not still alive during the rise of these next kings in Persia. Remember when we left Daniel, he's like 80 some years old. And so he's in the reign of Cyrus and Darius. And the scripture only talks about how he fared well during the reign of Cyrus and Darius. So more than likely, he wasn't there for the next 3 kings that arose. All right, so he's probably gone to heaven at that point. Good for him. So now Greece, what do we see about Greece in verses 3 and 4?
Well, a mighty king arose in Greece, like one king, but then his kingdom was broken into 4 other smaller kingdoms. Which is
Okay, and
exactly what happened.
Yeah. And who is that mighty king?
Alexander the Great.
Yeah, Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great. And then it was broken into 4.
Mhm.
So what do we know about those 4?
Well, the leaders of those 4 kingdoms had been Alexander's generals or whatever. And so when he died, they took over and just divided up the whole empire, and each one led a section of empire.
Right.
Exactly.
Alexander the Great had no heirs to take over.
Right,
Right.
right. So yeah, he had a son who died young. So he had no heirs to take over. So you have the 4 generals. So again, think about this vision that Daniel had seen before. And if you look at the vision from chapter 7, from Daniel 7, what does that look like?
The 4 heads of the leopard, right?
Right.
Mhm.
So you have the leopard, but then you have 4 heads. 4 heads.
Mhm.
And when you look at in Daniel 8, it's described, Greece is described as is that a goat? What is that?
Yeah.
I forgot.
Yeah, the 4 prominent horns of the goat.
Yeah, the 4 horns of the goat, and then when 1 prominent horn. Okay. So that prominent horn is Alexander. And then when that one is broken off, you have the 4 horns that just divide the area. These are the generals who are ruling the different parts of the country. So this is Greece. Now let's just move into verse 5. Verse 5, who are the kings of the north and kings of the south? And you might want to look at that chart on page 69.
Kings of the south were the Ptolemy family,
Mm-hmm.
and the kings of the north were the Seleucians or Seleucus family.
That works. That works. Yeah. The kings of the north. So what area of the country would the kings of the south be from?
Egypt.
Egypt.
Egypt, okay? They're south of
Mhm.
Israel. The kings of the north would be from
Syria.
Syria.
Syria, okay? So you picture that. So Israel's in the middle. Israel's between the kings of the north and the kings of the south. They're going to get caught up in this battle. They're going to have different rulers, okay? So if you look at that chart, which kings were ruling Israel? Was it the north or the south?
The south
No.
mostly.
Okay, the south. You see all the asterisks that says these kings ruled Israel. So it's the southern kings are ruling Israel for most of this historical time. But then when you cross over to the kings of the north, what do you see?
Yeah, they didn't rule Israel until Antiochus Epiphanes. The
Yeah,
last- Well, oh, and well, the couple before him.
Yeah,
really.
number 6,
Uh-huh.
7, and 8.
Right,
yeah, Yeah.
Antiochus.
yeah.
yeah. So,
Antiochus the Great.
yeah. So we're going to run into him, remember, Antiochus Epiphanes is the bad guy, right? He's the bad guy. And so you see where he comes into play here in the rulership of Israel. So they go back and forth between being ruled by the kings of the south and the kings of the north. So Antiochus is from the kings of the north. And we're going to see him at the end of this chapter. So then you have the next many verses all the way up to 25. 25. What is this basically describing?
The back and forth transfer of power and the wars that went on between them and who won, and or the marriages that went on to create unions, and then it broke up, and it was just constantly back and forth, north and south, north and south. I kept writing on my margins, south, oh, now north, now south.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And then I
Yeah.
went in and filled in the names when it explained all
Yeah.
that. Interesting.
very interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
But what is significant about what is written here up to this point? What is significant?
What's significant is that it actually happened.
Yeah.
It actually happened in history. It's recorded.
Right. Absolutely.
So when Daniel got this word, he could not have known those people or anything,
No.
but
Mm.
but God had it all in his plan.
Absolutely. And this is the thing about history. I mean, history tells us exactly what happened. And you saw that in your notes. I love how they gave us notes that broke down chapter 11 with the commentary, and that you could see exactly how this all happened. So history, this is done. This
Mhm.
part is done. Okay, so now what do we do with the rest of it?
We don't know what it all means, but we know God's going to have it under control.
Absolutely. And that's what we've been talking about from day one in Daniel. right? God is in
Oh.
control.
Mhm.
This is the overarching theme of this whole book. God is in control. And yet Daniel looking at that vision, imagine having that vision and you don't have any idea what it's all about. And the messenger says, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen to your people. And then this whole reel plays out about history, which we know by looking back that that all happened. That all happened. So let's just move forward. What do we know? Because we're running into verse 21, a despicable person. What's that movie of Despicable Me?
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
it.
No, yeah. I think this is a different movie. Yeah. So let's talk about this despicable person that we see in 21. Which kingdom does he come from, north or south?
North.
north.
North, okay, north. So now we are on the northern side of this chart down here. Okay, we're down here. So what do we learn about this person and how do we identify him? Who is he?
He's the Antiochus Epiphanes.
Right, right. So you see him down in number 8. Number 8, okay. So let's see what we can learn about him. And this is the vision that Daniel saw. It says, in his place, a despicable person will arise on whom the honor of kingship has not been conferred. But he will come in a time of tranquility and seize the kingdom by intrigue. So he was not in the line of progression, or he was not voted in, but he seized the kingdom. What else do we learn about him? What will he do?
In 23, practices deception.
Mm-hmm. Probably how he sees the kingdom. What else do we see? We see him in 21 through 35.
He deposed the high priest.
Mm-hmm. What about in verse 24?
And it says during a time of tranquility, he'll enter the richest parts of the realm. I'm not sure what the realm.
Ours says province,
Gonna
so
plunder and
Mm,
yeah, spoil.
it's
It
like
looks
he
Go ahead,
buys
Dave.
the people off by distributing possessions and booty, and
is he like a Robin Hood?
That's
Like
exactly what I was thinking, Blythe,
stealing
Robin
from
Hood.
the rich and giving to the poor, but
Yeah.
just to make the poor like him,
Right.
maybe, or
Uh-huh. Well, he's deceitful.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, let's see.
It looks like he'll wage war with the king of the south.
Mm-hmm.
Linda,
Yeah.
Before we go any farther, who is the Prince of the Covenant in verse 22?
Okay.
It says the army shall
Um,
be utterly swept away,
mhm.
even the
Yeah.
Prince of the Covenant. Who is
The high
that?
Carla?
priest.
Carla, I think you answered that.
It's the high priest Onias the third.
he was a
So
priest,
the
So the
covenant, okay,
Jewish priest.
right?
the question, you have to look for it. What does the covenant represent? When we see covenant through the rest of this chapter, what does it represent? Who does it represent?
The Jews.
Jewish people.
The Jews, okay? It's Daniel's people. They are the people of the covenant, okay? Which goes all the way back to Genesis, back to Abraham, okay? They are the people of the covenant. And so the prince of the covenant, the prince of the Jewish people would be more than likely the high priest. So he's doing away with the religious
Temple
system for the
worship.
Jew. Right,
Right.
right. Good question, Carol, thanks. Anything else we see about him? Look at verse 27. So he's obviously making a pact with the king of the south who has attacked him,
Mhm.
sitting at the negotiations table. Right? We're kind of seeing stuff like that right now, right? When the countries are coming together to end wars. So they're laying things out there at the table, and it says both kings were intent on evil, and they lied to each other at the same table. And then 28, he returns to his land. So this was the king of the north returning to his land.
But his heart is set against the Jewish people, the Holy Covenant.
Right. His heart is set against the Jewish people, the people of the covenant.
Yeah, it's interesting, even though they had not done anything, they're getting the brunt of his anger. Kind of
Mhm.
sad.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think one of the commentaries said that he was probably disappointed that he wasn't able to take all of Egypt. And when he went back, he took his anger out on the Jewish people.
Somewhere it said, I think he even did it twice.
Right,
Came back and
right.
it's like he needed a dog to kick, and it was the Israelites.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Does that ever happen? Does that ever happen in our culture? Where people who are mistreated have done nothing wrong? Yeah. It seems to be the whole picture of the world, you know? Yeah.
Mhm.
So we pick him up in 29 and 30. As Dave was saying, he seems to do this again. So in 29, it says at the appointed time he will return and come into the south, but this last time it will not turn out the way it did before, because the ships of Kittim will come against him. So now we're entering another player in this. Okay, so where are these ships coming from?
Cyprus.
Cyprus.
Okay.
Romans.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of the Roman fleet from what I was reading.
Mhm. Yeah. So who comes after Greece?
Rome.
Rome.
Okay.
Fourth kingdom.
Yeah, the fourth kingdom. So we're seeing this all play out. So Rome comes in and stops him again, which makes him mad. And he will again be enraged at the Holy Covenant and take action. And what does this say about when he takes action against the holy people, against the Jews? In verse 30.
30.
Yeah, in 30.
Well, he comes back, he says, and he shows regard for those who forsake the holy covenant. So if I understood that right, it's like he persuades some of them to, forsake, continue to go against, he leads them astray.
Mhm. We saw him kill the high priest. Okay? So we're starting to break down their system of worship. And he entices some of them, obviously, and he shows regard for those who will walk away from the covenant.
Mhm.
Okay, so what about Daniel? Mhm.
We already said that. He's probably died already.
Yeah. So we saw Daniel being tempted several times, didn't we?
Mhm.
Several times. But he never walked away from the covenant. And that's what we have to remember. No matter what happens, we do not walk away from the covenant. And what we're going to see in the rest of the study is what happens to people who don't walk away from the covenant. Not always good. But after that, you win. Yeah. Well, you win all the way through, but there are consequences. Yeah, you win, but it won't always be easy. So Antiochus Epiphanes says verse 41, he will also enter the beautiful land and many countries will fall. Okay. So this is, I skipped a whole section, sorry. So Antiochus Epiphanes goes up to verse 35. See if I'm backing up to see if I need to retract anything. Oh, verse 32. This is Antiochus. In 32, by smooth words, he will turn to godlessness those who act wickedly toward the covenant. But the people who know their God will display strength and take action. And that's where he's trying to pull people away from the covenant. But people who know their God, like Daniel, will not fall for that. Then 36 through 45, we have a change here. Okay. So Antiochus Epiphanes is a foreshadowing of this next king that we see in verse 36. What is 36? How does that start?
And
The
the
king shall do as he wills.
Okay, then the king. Okay, so back up to verse 35. Some of those who have insight will fall in order to refine, purge, and make them pure until the end time, because it is still to come at the appointed time. Okay. So, and if we go back to chapter 10, verse 14, the messenger says, I will tell you what will happen to your people at the end time. So we're going from history, from Babylon, Medes and Persians, Greece. Now Rome is entering. Okay. But he talks about Antiochus Epiphanes, who is a foreshadowing of the king to come at the very end time. At the very end time. So this is one of those things where we're talking about prophecy, where it has a right now fulfillment, then it has a future fulfillment. And so this is the dividing line. So this king is of the same kind as Antiochus Epiphanes. We saw what he did. And then we're going to see what this king, who is the little horn of the fourth kingdom. Okay. And we're going to see more about that in the next 2 weeks. But this person is the little horn of the fourth kingdom. So what do we learn about him? Look at verse 36.
yeah, he will exalt himself,
Mhm,
magnify himself above every god.
mhm.
He'll prosper,
Mhm.
speak things against God, our God.
And we saw some of that in the vision, and I think it was in chapter 7, when it talked about he will exalt himself and he will speak things, blasphemous things from his mouth, and
he'll even present himself as a god
right,
above
right,
all.
right. What about 37, verse 37? What do you see him doing there?
I thought it was interesting when he said he will show no regard for the gods of his fathers.
Anybody else think that's interesting?
Mhm.
Okay, Carla's saying yes, yes, yes.
Mhm.
Anybody have any answers about that? No? Okay. Okay, so let's, this man is the king of what the ruling nation at the time, which will be Rome. Okay.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, is this one of the Roman emperors like Julius Caesar who or somebody like that who thought he was a god?
Nero, Zeus, yeah.
I mean, do we
This,
know which Roman emperor this is?
yeah, from my understanding, this is beyond that. This is end time.
Oh,
Yeah, this is
Oh.
end
wait,
end
so the
time.
fourth king, I thought the fourth kingdom was Rome
It is.
Empire.
But we don't have all of the ruling people in there, but what we're coming to is right before the stone.
Yeah,
So, and we kind of looked at that before and compared it with Revelation 12 or 13, the little horn. So this is the little horn at the very end, So in between Greece and the very end, you have all the rulers of Rome. But this vision is not giving details about Rome.
So verse 35 sort of ends what we know as history. And now in 36, we're starting times that are even to come for us.
Right. Things that have not yet happened.
got it.
Um,
And so we're
Yes.
in the fourth kingdom still right now.
Yes.
And this is the end of the fourth kingdom.
Okay, in your homework on page 62, or somewhere in there, on day 3 and 4. On number 2, so number 1 says using the chart, the history of Israel's relationship to the kings of Daniel. Then go to number 2 and talks about Daniel 11:5 to 35, lays out historical events before they occur, which we have seen. And then the second paragraph says, and then even history does not take us beyond Daniel 11:36. Nothing like Daniel 11:36 through Daniel 12:12 has occurred. Why? Because it is yet to be fulfilled.
Mhm.
So you're right, Nancy, that's all of that has taken place. But now, and Antiochus showed us a foreshadowing of this little horn, so we can understand what that little horn is going to look like.
And he's the one that even though we don't have a name, because that's in the future, we refer to as the Antichrist, right?
Right. So when it talks about he will have no regard for the gods of his fathers, so he is a Gentile ruler. He's not Jewish. Okay, he's not Jewish. So the gods of his fathers are not the gods of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's a phrase we see a lot in scripture referring to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But this is not an Israelite. This is a Gentile ruler, and he will not have any regard for the gods of his fathers. And what I read was about for a religious system. Okay, for a religious system. He will have no regard for a religious system, which we will see because he was going to put a halt to the Jews' religious system. Religious systems mean nothing to him because he's God. We saw that he will exalt himself and he will make himself to be God and people will worship him, just like Nebuchadnezzar did with that statue,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
It says in verse 41, he will also enter the beautiful land. What's that?
Israel.
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 Israel. Okay, Israel, beautiful land, Israel. And many countries will fall, but some will be rescued. If we follow the end of that chapter, verse 45, he will pitch the tents of his royal pavilion between the seas and the beautiful holy mountain. That would be the sea,
Mhm.
and Jerusalem would be the holy mountain. Okay.
Mhm.
We're going to see that he will actually move in to Jerusalem. I'm not sure if that was a good answer or not. No, but I don't speak dog. Yeah. Yet he will come to his end and no one will help him. Okay. Now that takes us into chapter 12. So let's look at chapter 12. And it says, how does chapter 12 start?
At that time,
At that time. At what time?
when he's pitching his
When he-
tent,
In
Okay,
Jerusalem,
right.
right?
Yeah, at that end time. Okay, at that time, who will arise?
Michael.
Michael.
Michael. So Michael is Israel's angel. So at that time, when things are going to get very difficult, Michael will arise. He will stand guard over your people. Again, who's he talking to?
Israel.
Israel.
Yeah. So he's talking to Daniel about his people, the Israelites. He will arise and stand guard over your people. And then what's the next part of that verse?
They'll be delivered
Time of
if their
trouble.
name is in the book.
their name is in the book.
Trouble.
Yeah. You see, we're getting end time language now. We're getting end time language. It said right before that, there will be a time of distress such as never occurred since there was a nation until that time. And at that time, your people, everyone who is found written in the book will be rescued. See? So we're starting to see how this is the end times, starting from verse 36. All right. So what else do we see will happen from chapter 12? A time of distress that has never occurred before. Those whose names are in the book of life will be rescued.
Then you see
Even those who are already dead will rise.
Mhm. There's a whole crew of people outside my window doing the lawn work. Can you hear it all?
No.
No.
Good. Okay, good. Because they're very loud and now they're gathered, they're talking about things and I'm looking at three men here with different, yeah.
Tell him to
Yeah.
speak up.
So a little bit of distraction going on. Yeah. So I apologize, but if you don't hear it, we're good. All right. So rest of chapter 12.
So there's a
Um,
contrast of the sheep and the goats. Some go to everlasting life and
mhm.
some to shame and contempt.
Right. Right. And we saw a little bit of that with Antiochus Epiphanes pulling people away from the covenant, right? So you have some who are not believing, some who are.
Mhm.
Verse 4, but as for you, Daniel, what are you supposed to do?
Seal up the book till the end of time.
Again, till the end of time. The end of time,
Rock.
okay?
Rock.
The rock. Okay. So this will be the kingdom that will never end. And then we have Daniel, he looks and he says, he sees two other men standing there. And what's the conversation that happens there? What does Daniel want to know?
How long will it
Oh.
be?
Mhm.
Mhm. This is terrible news for Daniel, for his people, this great conflict. And how long will it be until the end of these wonders?
3.5 years. Time,
Okay,
times and half a time, which I believe that was 3.5 years.
right. We looked at that several weeks ago, right?
Mhm.
About the 3.5 years, 42 months, or 1,290, 60 days, forget. Yeah. As for me, I heard but could not understand. So I said, my Lord, what will be the outcome of these events? And what does he say?
Keep moving.
They're sealed until the end of time. Just go your way.
Just go your way.
Yeah.
Go your way. You can't possibly, he couldn't possibly understand, right? What was going to happen.
Mhm.
And we don't actually know either. We have ideas. We have some scripture that gives us a picture of what's going to happen, but actually, like, what that really will look like, we don't know. But what do we know?
That Jesus will come, that rock, that kingdom will happen.
Right.
And that
Right.
God is always in control.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, we're going back, and there's some numbers at the end of this chapter about from the time that the regular sacrifice is abolished, and that's what the Antichrist is going to do. He will abolish their Mosaic system of worship. And from that day, there will be 1,290 days. And how blessed is he who keeps waiting and attains to the 1335 days. But as for you, just go your way to the end. Then you will enter into rest and rise again for your allotted portion at the end of the age. Okay. That's good news, right? Yeah. Yeah. So that's what Daniel was told. Just go your way. And in the end, you will rise for your allotted portion. Yeah.
It's a good
So,
promise.
and yeah, we're going to look more at those numbers in the next 2 weeks and more about the abomination of desolation. But I love that for Daniel, all this confusion, he fasted and prayed for 3 weeks trying to get an answer and understand this. And 'cause he knew the 70 weeks, 70 years was almost up for his people and what's going to happen to his people. And in the end, the very end, the angel says to him, but as for you, go your own way. You just go your way. You'll enter into rest, and then you will be raised again for your reward, for your allotted portion. I love how Daniel gets that final message.
Mm.
He was so faithful, and so much about advocating for his people. So that's who our example is. That's Daniel. That's who we're going to follow. And then whatever happens, if it's a lion's den or a fiery furnace, whatever, we still know that God's in control. And we just hang on to that. We refuse to worship any other God. And then we will be raised again and receive our allotted portion. Right? Any other comments, questions? See, Patricia, I told you we had it all figured out.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
love that. I love that toward the end of that chapter 12, it says the wicked will act wickedly, and none of them will understand. But those who are wise will understand. So even if we don't understand it all now. If in fact we are there at that time, we will understand.
Okay.
So, I mean, I love that promise. You know, I don't have to sweat every little tiny thing. As long as I get the big picture and stay true to God, we'll have understanding.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's why it says those who know their God in verse, what was that? In 11, verse 32? Is that it? No,
Yeah,
it was where it said,
the people who know their God shall stand firm and
Yes.
take action.
yeah, and take action, right? Stand firm and take action. That's us. That's Daniel. Okay. We just know our God, we stand firm, we take action. Then we go and rest in peace.
That's been my theme for this whole study. Stand firm, stand firm.
Excellent. Excellent. And how's that working for you?
Okay.
Good. Yep, that's good.
Good.
So we're all gonna follow Nancy's example too, stand firm. Yep, know your God and stand firm. All right,
Mm.
so next week, lesson 9. Again, can get confusing, but we can sort it all out. Okay? Whether we're right or wrong on all of it, doesn't matter. We just have to get the big picture, right? Make sure that we're not speaking untruth, but just not understanding all the truth. That works. All right, so we'll see you guys all next week, and I'll send out an email about the next study, 2 Peter, starting April 23rd. April 23rd. All right.